we are constantly dealing with rebooted movies of our favorite classic movies. And it's a very common idea that the classic movies are always better than the rebooted movies. But do the younger generations really think that? Well, let's find out in reviewing the reboots. Hello and welcome to my new video series, Reviewing the Reboots. That's right, it's a choppy reviewer. I am back for this short series I'm going to do. You know how Hollywood always makes reboot movies from old classics, and nostalgia people like me don't really go for them. But these movies aren't really made for me, they're made for the younger audience, which is why I have a very good friend of mine, a special guest.
Hello everybody, I'm special guest. Really excited to watch these really old movies that came out before I was born that I had never planned to watch in my life because they just seemed that lame.
So what we're going to do is we're going to watch some classic movies and their reboots. Today, we're watching the Robocop movies. First, we'll watch the 2014, the PG-13 version of Robocop and get special guests' own personal opinions on it. And then we'll go back to watch the original 1987 version and see how well it held up. So, special guest, before we get started, what do you think about this movie?
Well, first off, you can't tell the original from the remake, and we're just looking at these covers. So that makes me think that this was, even though it was 1987, it was actually pretty good special effects and whatnot for the time. They seem like, just from looking at the covers, are going to be like the same movie, just with different actors to appeal to a different generation of audience. Basically, it just seems like there's this broken cop who's about to die. They put an exoskeleton on him and put a computer chip into his brain, and then all of a sudden he becomes this robo super cop that does shit. But then, oh no, there's drama, because is he robot or is he human? And the human side takes over the robot side, and there's some kind of chick on the back of this, so I'm guessing there's a love story, and there's Samuel L. Jackson, so I'm assuming there's gonna be some motherfucking snakes on a motherfucking plane. And I don't know who this old white guy is, but you can't have a movie with like a really old white guy who's evil, so I'm guessing he's the evil guy. That's all.
So without further ado, let's watch some movies.
Let's do it.
This is the future of American justice.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Well, everyone, we just finished our viewing of the Robocop 2014 version. Special guest, what are your thoughts?
Predictable. Just a lot just happened there. But, yes, very predictable. Like, running through my mind as I was watching it was, how could this be an improvement upon the original version, to the extent where I was trying to figure out, okay, what happened in the original version? And all I could think of was, it seems like, a same drawn-out story that we've heard time and again, just this time with a robotic cop. It's the story of what makes a human human, and that is emotion, that is sentiment, that is conscience. Fighting with the cold, calculated persona that is robotics. And the only thing I could think of was, the wife must be hotter in this movie, and the CGI and graphics just must be such an improvement since, what was the other one, 1984?
I think it was 1987.
1987. There was, to me, nothing special about that movie. Run of the mill. Will I ever watch it again? No.
Now I'm coming from a point of view where I've seen the original, so I know how the original was, and now I'm seeing this new one. And of course, me being old school, I don't think it holds a candle to the original. But I haven't seen the original in a long time, so I don't know how well it's held up. With this one, like you said, there's nothing memorable about it. Can you even remember, like, any of the musical themes? Think back right now. What kind of musical theme or anything can you hum to yourself right now?
I can't. The most memorable, and I'm glad you brought that up, the most memorable instance in this whole movie was when the man was trying to play the guitar with his robotic arms and could not put emotion into the music. The whole theme of humans are emotional, music is emotional thing, not just a robotic, like a physical sort of, there's a word I'm looking for here. That was the most memorable thing out of the whole entire movie.
Now for the action scenes, like for me, I just felt like it was inconsequential action. You just see bullets flying, there's explosions, but for me, I didn't feel like, oh no, he's in trouble. It's more like, can we hurry up and get this over with so we could just move on with the story?
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Terminator.
First or second? Or third?
I've not seen any of the Terminators, so I'm honestly just going off based on what I've seen on the previews. And, yeah.
In this movie, they seem to have like a really big attachment with the family. They're always showing them with the family at the beginning. And while I could get they're going with an emotional attachment with the family, I don't even remember his wife's name or his kid's name.
Clara and David.
You're right. I think they were Clara and David.
But did I feel anything for the family? No. Did they really drive that emotional response, get me feeling, get me upset and sad for the family? No, they failed to make that connection.
Now, this movie felt very run-of-the-mill, very by the numbers, trying to do what any generic action movie does and ship it out the door.
Yeah, they want people to go to the theaters and watch it. That's it. That's all they wanted, was to reboot this so they could get even more money out of it. Was it worth it? No.
Okay, now that we've given you our opinions on this movie, we're going to watch the original 1987 version. And we'll see if it held up, and we'll see if someone from this generation likes it as much as somebody from my generation.
Let's do it.
This guy is really good.
He's not a guy, he's a machine.
What are they gonna do, replace us?
Murphy, it's you.
You have the right to remain silent, Ernie. Anything you say may be used against you.
You better back up, pal!
Your move, creep. Thank you for your cooperation.
That was stupid. That was 103 minutes of my life wasted. You were like so excited about this movie, and I was like, okay, alright. And then I watched it, and then in the first 2 minutes, I was just like, oh my god, kill me now.
Okay, that was not the response I was expecting. So, special guest, what exactly was it about the movie you didn't like?
Lack of resolution. I clearly feel like they just made a reboot so they could show the fans just how much more advanced technology is now, and CGI, and wow, look at all the cool things we can do now. And you know what? They did do one thing. They did, I'm sure, you had fans that wanted to know, hey, what's actually inside the suit? They solved that with the reboot, but anything else? I didn't really care about the characters. The cops obviously were not trained as cops. They didn't behave as cops. And as a former military person, it was painful to watch. I was like, this is a fucking shit show. And, oh my god, when people get hit with a bullet, they go down, unless they're total fucking badasses, and then maybe they could take 2 bullets, but shit, these people were getting fired by 50 caliber weapons and just kept standing with their blood swirling everywhere. It would have gone in one side and out the other, there had been a gaping hole inside of them at such close range, and yet they still were standing there with really, really fake blood and special effects happening, getting shot repeatedly. And why can't they have more attractive characters? All the characters in this movie were ugly. Like, where is the... and what's with that guy looking like a Black Panther? And then the Asian guy looked very stereotypically Asian. This movie was, what's the word? Offensive. Just in all aspects, this movie was offensive and stupid. And they obviously didn't know anything about gun recoil. Because let me just fire this big ass, like, grenade launcher flamethrower thing and not have it kick me back on my ass at all. No, I'm just gonna stand upright and fire this like nothing happened. I'm really glad I was not alive very much in the 80s. I'm really glad I was just like, you know, I was born in 89 at the tail end, and then I got to experience the 90s my whole childhood, because the 80s was obviously a very stupid place to be.
Wow. Okay. I will admit, throughout this entire movie, while we're watching it, every time you complained, my only real defense for this movie was, it's the 80s. That's just how the 80s did things. And a lot of people argue with these reboots that people should just watch the originals because the originals are so much better. And for me, personally, I love this movie. But then again, I'm an 80s kid. But quite clearly, somebody who grew up in the 90s, and probably even after that, will see 80s movies as something completely different. Because I was not expecting this at all. Alright, so clearly you didn't like either movie. But let's compare what the movies did similar and differently. With the reboot, we did have Robocop, who was, after his transformation, was still a human and slightly lost control of his humanity when somebody kind of like flicked the switch, and then he had to regain it. In this movie, Robocop was a robot right off the bat, and he had to gain his humanity like very slowly throughout the movie. Even then, he didn't even have all his humanity because his family was gone. He didn't have memories of his family, but he knew he had a family. And you did mention earlier that you wanted to know if this movie made you care about the wife and son.
Definitely not.
Yeah, they were in this movie for probably about 3 minutes max, maybe, and that was all in flashback. While in the reboot, it was just crammed down our throats every single minute.
The wife and kids were more of an annoyance than anything.
In the reboot or in the original?
In the reboot.
I agree. Now, you did mention the effects. What did you think of the practical effects in the original 1987 versus the new one? And I'm talking about Robocop in particular.
You know, neither one were really realistic. I mean, I guess it was a little bit better in the 2014 version, the reboot. But in both movies, Robocop was just sitting there taking a beating and not even flinching. I guess it was shown more so in the reboot. That's just because, you know, we're actually a little bit smarter about the effects of battle and how a body or a robot would respond to that. But in the original, it's like, well, why are you even bother firing at him? You're all gonna die. Guys, just run away. Obviously, the bullets are not doing anything. Everybody's dying. Well, why are you so stupid?
Now, I will disagree with some of the things you said there. As far as like how the bullets just don't affect Robocop. Yes, there was that scene in the reboot where he's in that one room and everybody's using 50 caliber weapons, which are supposed to be able to penetrate his armor. And he's just walking through them. And like his entire like outfit was all CG'd. While in the original, yeah, none of the bullets are affecting him, they're bouncing off of him. But I still believe that the bullets are actually hitting him. Because like that's not a CG outfit he's wearing, that's an actual outfit, and we see the damage and the scuff marks throughout the entire movie. But
True.
that's my opinion on that. I prefer the
True.
practical effects over all the CG stuff. Because in the reboot, I felt he didn't didn't feel like a Robocop. Felt more like a guy in an Iron Man suit. Yeah,
Man, we should have watched Iron Man.
well, at the time in the 80s, he moved and he felt like an actual robot. Slow, kind of clunky. Like he wasn't a guy in a suit. He was a robot. And I guess it's my nostalgia that's kind of pinging at me. I like that better.
Well, you gotta understand too, back in the 80s, that's what they expected of the robot. Like, that was, like, what could be the possible scenario of how a robot moves, and that was the ideal. Here in the 2010s, robots are seamless. That is the ideal for a robot. It moves just like a human. It's not all bulky and boxy and robotic in movement. It's more fluid, like a human would move, because technology has advanced, and that is the ideal that we are working towards now.
All right, well, clearly we're going to have to agree to disagree here. And I think you do bring up a very good point that people in the later generations probably would not appreciate the 1987's version of Robocop. While people...
Nobody should.
The what?
Nobody should appreciate it.
Oh, now you're just being mean. So that's what we thought. I'd like to thank special guests for being my special guest, and those have been our opinions. Take them for what they're worth.